Before we begin, I want you to slow your breathing. Let your body sink into whatever is holding you. There is nothing to prove tonight, nothing to perform, nothing to fix. Just listen, because what you are about to hear is not motivation, it is installation. Tonight is not about trying harder. It is about becoming different. And the beautiful thing about the mind is that it reshapes itself in repetition while you rest, while you drift, while your conscious guard lowers. Your subconscious is listening, and what it hears most often, it accepts as truth. So as you lay there between wakefulness and sleep, I want you to consider something quietly. What if the version of you that struggled was never the final version? What if the man who hesitated was only practice? What if the fear, the delay, the inconsistency were not proof of weakness, but evidence that the identity was unfinished? You are not here by accident. You did not press play casually. Something in you is ready, ready to stop drifting, ready to stop negotiating with doubt, ready to stop repeating an identity that no longer fits. And tonight, we begin the rewrite, not loudly, not emotionally, but rhythmically, because what you repeat becomes your rhythm, and what becomes rhythm becomes identity. So let these words move through you slowly. Let them settle. Let them echo in the space between thought and sleep. And as you listen, understand this: you are not a creature of your past. You are the author of your next chapter. And tonight, you take the pen back. Now, what if I told you, not as poetry, not as fantasy, but as fact, that your future is not fixed, that it is not carved into stone by the hands of your past, that the version of you who hesitated, who broke under fear, who lived beneath his power, was merely a rough draft? And what if this speech, that is the moment you take the pen back, understand this: you are not a creature of your past. You are the author of your next chapter. And the pages you write today, with your thoughts, your words, your repetitions, will become the life you live tomorrow. So I must ask you plainly, are you willing to write something new? Not with your hand, but with your habits. Not with ink, but with identity. You did not stumble here by accident. No man finds this message unless something inside him is ready to rise. And though the world may call this just another speech, I tell you, this is not entertainment. This is your intervention, a divine interruption, a mental reprogramming for those who are tired of drifting through their days and are now ready to command them. But I must be honest with you. Hearing this speech once will not be enough. What you repeat becomes your rhythm, and what becomes rhythm becomes identity. So I will speak these laws to you one by one, not to inspire you for a moment, but to transform you forever. And if you have the courage to return to this message again and again, you will not recognize the man you become. This is the foundation of all change, autosuggestion, the deliberate feeding of your subconscious with the truth of who you have decided to be. And these laws I'm about to give you are not theories. They are truths carved from the lives of men like Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Lincoln, and Schwab. Men I studied, men I walked beside, men who did not wait to feel powerful, but became powerful through repetition. And you, my friend, are no different. You are not weak. You have simply been repeating weakness. You are not broken. You've simply been following a pattern that does not belong to you. But today, that pattern breaks. This is your new beginning. This is your rewrite. Let us begin. Law 1. You become what you think about. Every man lives under a law greater than any court, constitution, or nation, the law of thought. As surely as the sun rises and gravity holds your feet to the earth, you will always become the dominant idea you hold in your mind, not the idea you wish for, not the hope you repeat once in a while, but the one you think about most. This law is simple, and that is why most ignore it, because it does not dazzle the ego, it does not flatter the intellect, but it is the root law of all human transformation. Let me speak clearly. You are not your thoughts, but you are always becoming the thoughts you repeat. And the man who allows fear, doubt, confusion, and worry to sit in his mind will build a life that reflects those ideas. This is not philosophy. This is psychology. This is the way your subconscious mind operates. Let us take the example of Andrew Carnegie, the man whose philosophy seeded everything I have taught. When I first met him, he did not speak to me of steel or wealth or politics. He asked me one question: what is the one thing you think about when no one is watching? He understood something the world still struggles to grasp, that the thoughts you entertain in the silence are the blueprint of your results. Carnegie thought about expansion, about impact, about legacy. He saw himself not as a boy from Scotland, but as a force for building the new world. And because he repeated that identity, because he saw that picture every day in his mind, reality was forced to obey him. Now let me bring you to Henry Ford, a man born into modesty, mocked for his lack of formal education, but he repeated one idea louder than all others: whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. What was that statement? It was not cleverness. It was mental programming. It was a law wrapped in simple words. Ford thought about possibility, and because he repeated that thought long enough with enough belief, it became the factory blueprint of his subconscious mind. And that mind went on to build an empire. Understand this: the mind is a garden. The seeds are your thoughts, the emotions are the water, and repetition is the sun. Whatever you plant, feel, and repeat will grow. If you plant fear and repeat it, your life will reflect it. If you plant faith and repeat it, your future will submit to it. Now listen closely. I do not speak of wishful thinking. I do not mean the man who closes his eyes and daydreams once and calls it belief. I speak of the man who repeats deliberate thought until it becomes a dominant frequency. Let us revisit Thomas Edison. Do you think he had no doubt during the 10,000 failed attempts at creating the electric light? Of course he did. But his dominant thought was always, it will work. And because he returned to that thought, not once, not twice, but 10,000 times, the failures could not touch his core identity. He became what he thought about most, and that was light. Let me ask you now, what do you think about most? When your phone is off, when the noise is gone, when no one is watching, what thought do you rehearse in the silence? Because that thought is your true belief. And that belief is building your results. If your dominant thought is delay, then your results will always be stuck. If your dominant thought is fear, then you will always hesitate. If your dominant thought is blame, then you will never move. But if your dominant thought is purpose, if your dominant thought is faith, if your dominant thought is I am becoming the man I was designed to be, then you will begin to rise. You must now begin to guard your thoughts like treasure. You must speak your identity daily. You must write your aim clearly, and you must think only that which you want to become. Repeat this to yourself. I am not a prisoner of random thought. I am the architect of focus. My dominant thoughts are deliberate, clear, and aligned with my purpose. What I think about most, I become. So I choose to think power. Let me offer you a practical system to install this law. Every morning, write down the man you are becoming. One sentence, clear, present tense. Example, I am disciplined, decisive, and destined to build an empire. Every afternoon when distractions peak, pause and speak that identity aloud, as if your future depends on it, because it does. Every night before you sleep, visualize that identity already real. Feel it, speak it again, and let your subconscious dream about who you've chosen to become. This is how you take command of your mind, not through emotion, not through motivation, but through repetition of identity. This is how Abraham Lincoln overcame depression, political isolation, and national division. Not because he always felt strong, but because he held a dominant thought of unity and emancipation. That thought consumed him. It fed his fire. And though he bent under pressure, he never broke because his thoughts were anchored. That is your task now, to build a mental anchor so strong that no storm can move it. To become the kind of man whose inner voice speaks louder than any external noise. To obey the law that never fails, you become what you think about most. Say it now. I think power, I speak power, I become power. And then say it again and again and again until your subconscious accepts it as truth and your life begins to reflect the law you now live by. Let us now continue to the next law, the law that turns your thoughts into faith-powered action. Shall we begin? Law 2. Faith is the only antidote to fear. If you are to build a life of power, a life of impact, of wealth, of spiritual fulfillment, you must understand this one law more than any other. Faith and fear cannot occupy the same space. One will dominate, the other will die. You cannot speak of transformation while rehearsing hesitation. You cannot walk in destiny while bowing to fear. The moment a man chooses faith, truly chooses it, he begins to kill fear by starvation. Because fear has no power unless it is fed. And what feeds fear? Doubt, delay, confusion, excuses, the absence of decision. These are the conditions in which fear multiplies like a virus. But faith? Faith is not a feeling. It is not blind optimism. It is not a convenient thought you whisper when it's easy. Number faith is a state of mind. It is belief installed through repetition and solidified by decision. Let me tell you a story of a man who lived this law fully, Henry Ford. Ford was not respected when he started. He was laughed at. The idea of a horseless carriage was treated like fantasy. Even after early success, his own engineers told him that building an 8-cylinder engine in a single block was impossible. And you know what he said? Build it anyway. They came back again, said it couldn't be done. Build it anyway. He repeated it again, until they succeeded. Why did he persist? Because his faith was louder than their fear. Ford once said, obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off your goal. That is the posture of faith. You keep your eyes on the vision. You repeat belief louder than fear. You act in alignment with destiny, even when it is not yet visible. Faith is not just positive thinking. It is the deliberate focus of belief, installed into your subconscious mind through repetition and decision. Let us look to Thomas Edison. The man failed 10,000 times to produce a working light bulb. How does a man continue after 100 failures? 1,000? 10,000? The average man quits after 3 attempts, but Edison did not carry average belief. He was obsessed, he was possessed by purpose, and that purpose gave birth to unshakable faith. He said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. What is that? That is a man who refuses to speak fear, That is a man who trains his subconscious to obey faith, not statistics, not opinions, not temporary evidence. Now let us look to Abraham Lincoln, perhaps one of the greatest living embodiments of faith through adversity. Lincoln did not rise to the presidency through charm or popularity. He rose through clarity of mission and the endurance of belief. He lost elections. He suffered depression. He faced ridicule and political betrayal. Yet he continued, and he led a nation through civil war. And during the darkest days of that war, when death and despair hung over the Union, Lincoln wrote affirmations to himself. He spoke words of unity and strength to his own mind. Why? Because he knew that if he let fear govern his thoughts, he would become paralyzed, and the nation would fall. He once said, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." That's faith. Not hope, not chance, creation, repeated belief, spoken into existence. Now, what about you? When fear whispers in your mind, do you answer with belief? When the path grows dark, do you pause or do you persist? You must now make faith your default state. And that comes from 3 rituals. Declare your vision daily. Speak it aloud, not as a wish, but as a law. Act in alignment before you feel ready. Action builds evidence. Evidence strengthens faith. Refuse to speak fear. You cannot afford casual language. Every word trains your subconscious mind. Say this aloud. Faith is not emotion. Faith is identity. I move before I feel ready. I trust before I see results. I act in faith. I build in faith. I win in faith. Understand this truth. Faith is not guarantee. It is guaranteed power the moment you decide to live by it. Andrew Carnegie, who taught me the principles behind everything I now share, told me this: Mr. Hill, teach men to replace fear with faith. Do that, and they will build anything. That statement became my mission, and that statement must now become your mission. Because fear will not go away through more research, and it will not dissolve through time. It must be replaced by repeated belief, decisive action, and relentless forward movement. This is how you starve doubt. This is how you build certainty. This is how you change your life. By installing the law of faith into every layer of your being. Let this be your command. From this day forward, I will not obey fear. I will act in faith. I will speak belief. I will move like a man who has already won. Repeat it daily. Because repetition is the only thing the subconscious respects. And once your subconscious accepts this law, there is nothing you cannot do. Now, let us continue to Law 3, the law that gives your faith a home, a direction, and a fire that cannot be extinguished. Law 3, the law of definite chief aim. There is no tragedy greater than a man with potential drifting in thought, drifting in effort, drifting in identity. Why? Because he has no definite chief aim, no singular purpose, no clear direction. He wakes up not with decision, but with distraction. He walks not with command, but with confusion. He speaks not with conviction, but with hesitation. And what becomes of a man like this? He becomes a leaf in the wind, pulled by opportunity, misled by opinion, ruled by fear, and forgotten by history. A man without a chief aim is not truly living. He is merely existing. But the man who carries a definite chief aim and repeats it, affirms it, breathes it daily is dangerous. He is focused. He is immune to drift. He is no longer wondering what he should do, who he should be, or what he is capable of, because he has already decided. And the mind, once fixed, begins to bend the world to match that decision. Let us turn to the man who taught me this law firsthand, Andrew Carnegie. When I first met Mr. Carnegie, I was a young man with curiosity, but no clear aim. He spoke to me with such intensity, such certainty, that I was shaken to my core. He said, "Young man, a person who does not have a definite purpose in life falls easy prey to petty worries, fears, troubles, and self-pitying, all of which lead to failure." He made it clear all great fortunes, all great movements, all great identities begin with a clearly defined chief aim. Not a general hope, not a vague idea, but a precise declaration. Carnegie's chief aim was not to merely be rich. It was to become the steel king of America, to revolutionize the industry, to bring structure to a disordered market. Every decision he made, from the books he read, to the men he hired, to the thoughts he entertained, served that single aim. Now listen carefully. You do not need 1,000 goals. You need one dominating goal, and every other goal becomes a subordinate. Think of Henry Ford again. His chief aim was not just to build cars, it was to make the automobile affordable to every working man. That aim drove him. It guided every innovation, every hire, every system he designed. When others built for luxury, Ford built for the people. He didn't change his aim when it got difficult. He simply refined his strategy. The Ford Motor Company's rise to dominance was not due to superior talent. It was due to superior focus. This law of a definite chief aim separates those who try from those who build. Charles Schwab, handpicked by Carnegie to run U.S. Steel, knew this as well. His aim was to become the greatest business leader of his generation. He wasn't an engineer. He wasn't the smartest man in the room, but he was the clearest. His clarity of purpose made him invaluable. He knew what he wanted, and because of that, every room he entered shifted in his favor. Now let me turn this mirror to you. What is your chief aim? Have you written it down? Do you repeat it every morning and night? Have you built a structure of thought around it? Or are you still wandering, hoping purpose will reveal itself in time? It won't. Purpose is not discovered. It is declared. You must choose it. You must own it. You must train your subconscious mind to accept it as law. Because here's what the average man does. He sets goals that change with his mood. He moves toward ideas that lose fire after a few weeks. He dreams of wealth one day, and then settles for safety the next. He builds momentum, and then lets it rot. Why? Because he never installed a definite chief aim. He never made it law in his mind. And the subconscious mind, unless directed with precision, will default to fear, to habit, to comfort. Let me offer you the exact method I've taught thousands. 1. Write your chief aim in present tense. I am building your exact goal with purpose, clarity, and unwavering belief. 2. Repeat it with emotion, every morning and every night. Repetition with emotion is the only way to impress the subconscious. 3. Act in alignment daily, no matter how small the step. Identity is not what you say you believe. It is what you repeat through action. Let me speak clearly now. Your life will either be the result of a definite chief aim or the result of other people's agendas. There is no middle ground, so choose now. Are you building your vision, or are you building someone else's? Say this aloud. I do not drift, I declare, I do not react, I aim, I do not guess, I know what I'm building. Repeat it daily, just as Carnegie did, just as Ford did, just as Edison did. They were not more gifted than you, but they were more focused than you. And now that you know this law, there is no excuse left. Write your chief aim, breathe it, build around it, and when distraction comes, return to it, because everything you want depends on this. And the man who carries a definite chief aim with clarity, fire, and discipline, he becomes impossible to stop. Now, Let us move to Law 4, the law of specialized knowledge, the very weapon that transforms aim into strategy and strategy into victory. Law 4, the law of specialized knowledge. Theme: general knowledge leads to general results. Specialized knowledge, when combined with purpose and action, becomes unstoppable. There is a common myth that knowledge is power, but I tell you, that is a half-truth. Knowledge is potential power. Only when it is specialized, is focused, and applied with purpose does it become actual power. A man can spend his life collecting facts, reading volumes, attending lectures, and still live in mediocrity. Why? Because his knowledge is scattered, broad, unfocused, like a flood without direction. It covers everything but moves nothing. But the man who focuses his learning, the man who selects a domain, a craft, a discipline, and then studies it obsessively, applies it daily, and refines it with fire, that man cannot be denied. That man in time becomes irreplaceable. This is the law of specialized knowledge, the tool of all titans, the sharp edge that divides amateurs from architects. Let me give you an example. Henry Ford. Now, Ford was mocked for his lack of traditional education. Journalists tried to paint him as an unlearned mechanic, a man unworthy of his position. So what did he do? He sued them, and when called to testify in court, he said plainly, "I don't need to clutter my mind with facts that I can summon in an instant from a man I hire." He wasn't being arrogant. He was making a profound statement. He didn't need general knowledge. He needed specialized mastery and men who carried it with them. Ford's genius was not that he knew everything. It's that he knew exactly what he needed to know and how to apply it to his vision with ruthless efficiency. Ford understood what most still miss, that the world does not reward the most intelligent. It rewards the most useful. And usefulness is born of specialization. Think now of Thomas Edison. Was he a philosopher, a statesman, a jack of all trades? No, he was a master of applied invention. His knowledge of electrical systems, resistance, materials, and industrial application was deep, not broad. He didn't dabble, he dived. He understood filaments better than anyone alive. He ran experiments not in hundreds, but in thousands. He didn't seek trivia. He pursued truths that could be tested. Because of that, he became the man who brought light to the world, literally. Now consider Charles Schwab, whom we've already discussed. He wasn't the most educated man in the steel industry, but his knowledge of people, of leadership, of organizational psychology, and business structure, that was specialized knowledge. And Carnegie knew this. That's why he appointed him. Not because Schwab knew everything, but because he knew what mattered and applied it with confidence and grace. Now ask yourself, what is the one area I am committed to mastering? What specialized knowledge, if I pursued it deeply, could make me irreplaceable? Because here is the truth. The average man reads 1 to 2 books a year, often at random. He studies sporadically. He watches whatever shows up in his feed. His mind is like an untrained dog, jumping from thought to thought, stimulus to stimulus. He is at the mercy of noise. But the great man, the man who applies the law of specialized knowledge, chooses one mountain, and he climbs it. He studies one field, one craft, one skill, and he returns to it every day until his knowledge becomes instinct, until his repetition becomes rhythm, and his rhythm becomes power. And then the world seeks him out. Let me give you the exact blueprint that was given to me by Carnegie himself. 1. Define your definite chief aim. You've already done this. Now ask, what knowledge directly fuels this aim? 2. List the skills and fields required to dominate this domain. If your goal is to lead an empire, study leadership, influence, systems, and strategy. If your goal is to master a craft, dive into technique, repetition, and innovation. 3. Build your reading list. No more casual reading. Select the 5 to 10 most powerful books or mentors in your chosen area and study them. Not once, not for entertainment. Study to install. 4. Teach what you learn. Carnegie once said, "The best way to deepen your knowledge is to share it." When you teach, your mind organizes the truth more sharply. 5. Apply daily. You don't just study, you build, you test, you move. Every lesson must find its way into action. Now, a warning. This law requires patience. The rewards are not instant, but they are inevitable. The man who builds specialized knowledge over years becomes unmovable. He is not subject to layoffs. He is not shaken by market trends. He becomes the source, and those around him recognize his value. Abraham Lincoln, though remembered as a statesman, was once just a poor farm boy. He didn't attend elite universities, but he specialized in one thing: language. He read deeply. He taught himself law. He studied oratory, rhetoric, and scripture. Why? Because he knew if he could master words, he could move hearts. And hearts, when moved, change nations. That specialized focus is what carried him to the White House, and through the greatest internal war America has ever faced. Let me speak directly to you now. Stop skimming. Stop scattering your energy. Stop consuming what does not contribute to your destiny. Choose your aim. Choose your field. Choose your fire. And then burn away everything else. Say this aloud. I am not a generalist. I am a weapon. I do not chase distractions. I build mastery. My knowledge is deep. My knowledge is rare. My knowledge is powerful. Repeat that daily. Reinforce it hourly. Because the world does not give its greatest rewards to those who know everything. It gives them to those who know exactly what they're doing and do it better than anyone else. That is Law 4. Now, we continue into Law 5. Surround yourself with power. Your environment builds or breaks you. You may believe that success is a solitary journey, that it is forged in the silence of your own mind, through grit, through will, through long hours of invisible labor. And while that may be part of the truth, I must now give you the greater law. No man becomes powerful in isolation. Every empire ever built was first surrounded by the right minds, the right voices, the right energy. You do not rise alone. You rise with the help of those who breathe power into your vision, or you fall surrounded by those who drain it from your soul. Environment is not neutral. It is either a weapon in your hand or a weight on your back. Let me speak plainly. You must surround yourself with people who sharpen you, not soften you, with men and women who speak possibility into your future, not skepticism into your goals. If you are the most driven man in the room, then you are in the wrong room, because what surrounds you will soon be inside you. Henry Ford understood this with absolute clarity. He did not build the Ford Motor Company by himself. He built it with a mastermind group, a concept I taught at length, because it is one of the most powerful laws of achievement. Ford surrounded himself with men who were not yes men, but fire starters. He sought out minds like Thomas Edison, Harvey Firestone, and even brought his thoughts to Luther Burbank. These men met often, not for entertainment, but for alignment. They exchanged ideas, they discussed industry, philosophy, the future, and most importantly, they built belief together, because belief when shared among strong minds, multiplies, and fear, when left unchecked among weak minds, spreads like disease. You must ask yourself now, who do I allow into the temple of my mind? Who has the keys to my focus, my energy, my conviction? Andrew Carnegie, the man who inspired my life's work, said to me, "Mr. Hill, show me a man's 5 closest associates, and I will show you his future." He meant this. You cannot outgrow your circle. You cannot build discipline in a sea of distraction. You cannot hold to faith when all who surround you breathe doubt. Carnegie handpicked every man he worked with, not only for skill, but for spirit. He demanded loyalty to purpose, hunger for growth, and belief in impossibility undone. He made Charles M. Schwab his right hand, not because Schwab knew everything, but because Schwab believed like fire. His optimism was relentless. His posture was magnetic. He brought out greatness in others simply by the energy of his presence. Now consider Thomas Edison. In his laboratories, he permitted no cynicism. He would remove assistants if they joked too often about failure, not because he was humorless, but because he understood the sacredness of mental space. His laboratory was not only a space of invention, it was a temple of belief. If you could not protect the atmosphere, you were asked to leave. Do you protect your own atmosphere like this? Let me make this even clearer. If you are surrounded by those who mock dreams, those who default to sarcasm, those who normalize mediocrity, those who flinch when you speak boldly, then you are not surrounded by friends. You are surrounded by limitations. You do not need cheerleaders. You need builders. You need men who ask you why not instead of telling you why not. You need women who look you in the eye and say, you haven't scratched your potential. You need mentors who make you uncomfortable with comfort. Now understand, this law is not only about people. It is about your daily mental environment. What books do you read? What voices do you let into your ears? What do you consume when no one is watching? Because your inputs become your internal voice, and your internal voice becomes your reality. If your atmosphere is soaked in power, you will breathe power. If it is polluted with distraction, comparison, and compromise, you will drown. That is why I urge you now to build your mastermind environment. Whether through people, through books, through disciplined solitude, create a mental space so charged with vision that doubt cannot survive in it. Say aloud, I do not allow weakness into my circle. I do not breathe the air of average. I do not seek approval. I seek alignment. Repeat this until your subconscious recognizes it as law, because it is law. You were not meant to build in silence forever. You were meant to multiply. And multiplication only occurs through connection to other great minds. One more story to seal this in you. Abraham Lincoln, in one of the most difficult moments of the Civil War, was known to retreat often to a group of trusted confidants, men who would challenge him, advise him, but above all, believe in the mission of union and freedom. He did not surround himself with flatterers. He chose conviction. And in that conviction, he made decisions that changed the course of history. You will be called to do the same. Surround yourself with power or risk being crushed by proximity to weakness. The law is simple. If you want to rise, raise your environment. Now say it again. I walk with power. I speak with power. I build my circle on fire, not comfort. Let that be your standard. And let us now continue into the next law that sharpens your edge and breaks the chains of hesitation. Shall we? Law 6. Speak as if it's already done. Language shapes destiny. There is a language of kings, and there is a language of prisoners. Every man speaks one or the other. And here's the truth. Before your future becomes reality, it becomes vocabulary. Before you become powerful, you must speak power. Before anything in your life changes, your language must change. The sixth law is this: you must speak as if the victory is already yours, not one day, not maybe, not if the world allows it, but now. Speak like a man who has already arrived, and your subconscious will begin moving mountains to make it true. This is not motivational fluff. This is the code that governed every great man I studied. Let me show you. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." Do you understand what that means? It means that the internal language you use, even in silence, is creating the reality you live in. When Ford was told that a V8 engine couldn't be built in one block, he didn't argue. He simply said, "Build it anyway." Not, "Try it." Not, "See what you can do." He commanded his vision into existence through language. And when the engineers failed, he said it again. "Build it anyway." That was not arrogance. It was alignment. His speech aligned with his identity. And identity builds results. Thomas Edison spoke in future tense certainty long before the light bulb existed, when he was surrounded by critics, financial pressure, and thousands of failed prototypes. He still said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That sentence alone could have been defeat, but he reframed it with a single word: yet. He spoke with a tone that assumed success was inevitable, because in his mind it already was. You must begin to do the same, because your words are not commentary, they are commands to your nervous system. If you say, "I'll try," your mind hears, "We're not certain." If you say, "Maybe one day," your mind hears, "Not yet." If you say, "I can't," your mind hears, "This is who I am." But if you say, "This is who I'm becoming," if you say, "It is done," if you say, "I move in certainty," then your mind begins rearranging itself around that command. Why? Because the subconscious does not know the difference between truth and repetition. It obeys tone, it obeys rhythm, it obeys language. Let me take you now to Andrew Carnegie, the richest man of his time, not because of inheritance, not because of education, but because of belief reinforced by speech. He would write down his chief aim and repeat it aloud, not once, not twice, but every morning and night, in his own handwriting, in his own voice, with emotion and fire, until that aim was no longer a goal, it was an identity. And from that identity came action, and from that action came fortune. I asked him, "Why do you repeat it, even now?" He said, "Because if I stop speaking it, I start doubting it." Let that strike you deep. Silence is the oxygen of doubt. Speech is the engine of belief. If you do not speak your future with fire, your subconscious has no reason to pursue it. You must become militant about your self-talk. Say it aloud. "I am the kind of man who finishes what he starts. I do not flinch. I do not fold. I walk as if the mountain has already moved." And do not say it once. Say it daily. Say it in the dark. Say it when fear rises. Say it before your biggest decisions. Say it until your very tone becomes proof of your power. Because here is what the great ones knew, and what average men never discover. You don't speak what's real. You speak what will become real. You speak it before you see it. You speak it as if it's already done. This is how you tell your mind, "I am in control now." This is how you reprogram fear into fuel. This is how you starve hesitation and install discipline. It begins with words, and those words must burn. Let me take you back to Abraham Lincoln. One of the most powerful speeches ever written, the Gettysburg Address, was only 272 words, but every sentence was sharp. Every line was wrapped in fire. And in less than 3 minutes, he rewrote the meaning of the Civil War. He didn't talk around the point. He spoke it into stone. Do the same with your life. Get specific. Get loud. Get deliberate. Stop whispering your dreams. Stop apologizing for your vision. Stop softening your future so others feel comfortable. Say it clearly. I am building something unshakable. I do not drift, I declare. I speak belief until the world has no choice but to believe with me. Now I challenge you. Write your future as if it's done. Speak your identity as if it's law. Repeat it daily until the world inside you begins to shift. And when doubt whispers, when fear tries to return, you raise your voice. You remind your subconscious who is in charge and say it now, not with hesitation, but with command. I am the man who speaks power. I am the man who lives power. My voice builds my world. Let this be your new language. And let us now continue into the next law that transforms your decision into destiny. Because words without action are noise, and the next law teaches how to move like fire. Law 7, move like fire, the power of decisive action. There comes a moment in every man's life when the voice in his head must be overruled by the movement in his body, when the questions end and the action begins. Because no matter how powerful your belief is, no matter how strong your language becomes, without movement, it dies on the battlefield of hesitation. The 7th law is simple, but it is absolute. You must act like fire. You must move, not tomorrow, not once you're ready, but now. Action is how you prove belief. Every man who ever built an empire, who ever changed the course of history, who ever rewrote what was possible, did it not by feeling confident, but by moving through the uncertainty. Let's begin with a story you've heard me mention before, but let us dig deeper. Henry Ford had a vision for the automobile, one that seemed laughable at the time. Roads were not ready, cities were not planned, people were skeptical, but he acted anyway. He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He moved. Ford didn't have the luxury of sitting on committees and asking for approval from the crowd. He put his hands in the grease, tested designs, and made decisions. Action became his identity. That's why he said, "You can't build a reputation on what you are going to do." He knew the truth. Only movement builds legacy. Now think of Thomas Edison again. Over 10,000 failures, but he did not pause. He continued. Every failed attempt was followed not by sulking, not by overthinking, but by another test, another experiment, another step forward. Why? Because he understood that motion kills fear. When you're moving, fear can't land on you. It can only attach itself to stillness. And Edison never stood still. Let me take you now to Charles M. Schwab. When Carnegie needed a man who could speak with clarity, act without delay, and rally others around massive industrial visions, he chose Schwab. Why? Because Schwab had a rare gift. He made fast, confident decisions. He moved while others planned. He walked into boardrooms, delivered speeches with boldness, and laid out visions others were too afraid to say out loud. And the world rewarded him for it. Not because he was the smartest, not because he had all the answers, but because he acted. Now you must ask yourself, do I hesitate when I know what I must do? Do I delay under the illusion of preparation? Do I seek more clarity when I already have enough to begin? Because here's the truth. Your delay is a lie. It tells you that waiting is safer, that more information is needed, that confidence must come before movement. But that's not how greatness is built. Confidence is the result of action, not the prerequisite. So you must act before you're ready. You must speak before your voice feels perfect. You must move before your legs stop shaking. You must launch before the world applauds. Because here is a fact I've proven over and over again in my studies. Motion creates belief. The man who acts begins to believe he is the kind of man who acts. The man who waits begins to believe he is not ready. You are what you do. Not what you think, not what you dream, not what you plan, but what you move toward. Let me tell you the story of Abraham Lincoln during one of the most defining decisions of his presidency, the Emancipation Proclamation. There were countless advisors telling him to wait, that the timing wasn't right, that it would divide the country even further, that it could cost him the war. But Lincoln moved anyway. He understood that greatness is forged in decision. He knew that delaying action to please everyone would only weaken the moral backbone of the nation. He wrote the words, he signed the paper, he declared freedom for millions. Not because it was convenient, but because it was necessary. And history changed that day, not because the world was ready, but because one man decided to move. You must now do the same, maybe not for a nation, but for your own destiny. You must learn to live in movement, to act without waiting, to walk even when the next step is unclear. Because fire doesn't ask permission to burn. It ignites, it consumes, it spreads, and that must become your identity. The man who speaks boldly, the man who acts swiftly, the man who doesn't rehearse fear but replaces it with fire. Here is your command. From this moment on, you act before you feel ready. You move before you're confident. You train your nervous system that decisiveness is your default. Say this now. I do not delay. I act as if it's already done. I train my mind through motion. And repeat it daily. Because action is the language your subconscious respects most. The more you move, the more it believes. The more it believes, the more power you access. This is how every empire begins. Not with brilliance and not with luck, but with motion. Let this part of the speech be your turning point. The day you stopped waiting, the day you moved like fire. Let us continue into the next law, the one that ensures your power isn't momentary, but permanent. Law 8, train the mind. Master your inner language. Everything you experience, your courage, your hesitation, your decisions, your delay, is not just the result of circumstance. It is the result of the words you whisper to yourself when no one else is listening. This is the 8th law. You must train the mind, and you must master your inner language. Because let me tell you this plainly, the most dangerous man in the world is not the one with the most money, the strongest body, or the loudest voice. It is the man who controls what he tells himself. Your success begins and ends with the words you speak to your own mind, and if those words are weak, your results will be too. When I studied the lives of men like Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, and Thomas Edison, one pattern became inescapable. They mastered their internal language long before the world believed in them. Let's begin with Carnegie. Do you believe he rose from a poor Scottish boy working in a bobbin factory to one of the wealthiest men on earth just by chance? By inheritance? He fed his mind a different language than the people around him. While others were telling themselves, I can't, he was repeating, I must. While others said, this is enough, he declared, there is more. Carnegie once told me that he repeated his chief aim daily, aloud, with emotion. He wrote it down, spoke it, affirmed it, until it saturated his subconscious and reprogrammed what his mind accepted as possible. That's not inspiration. That's installation. That's autosuggestion. the most powerful force in all personal development, a law so potent it can take a poor boy with no connections and elevate him to become the architect of steel empires and philanthropic legacies. It all starts with language. And now let us turn to Henry Ford. Ford is famous for saying, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." But most men repeat that line without understanding its depth. Ford meant it. He spoke belief to himself, even when no one else did. Do you know how many times he was told his vision was foolish? That horses would never be replaced? That factories couldn't scale the way he imagined? But he didn't speak the language of doubt. He didn't parrot the world's disbelief. He created a new language, and he told himself, "It will be done." He trained his mind to respond to difficulty with solutions, not fear. And that training, repeated daily, built the mental steel required to withstand the storms of invention, rejection, and ridicule. Now look at Thomas Edison. His success was not born from luck or random genius. It came from a trained internal dialogue, one that refused to translate failure as final. 10,000 failed experiments, 10,000 voices of doubt. But inside, he repeated only one phrase, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Where do you think that resilience comes from? Not from a rare brain, not from divine favor, but from repetition of empowering language. And let me speak now of Abraham Lincoln, whose inner world had every reason to fracture. Depression, loss, war, criticism from all sides. But Lincoln trained his mind through journaling, reflection, and deeply held affirmations of purpose. He was not always externally confident, but he remained internally committed. His mind did not waver with the storm, because his language had been disciplined. This is the work you must now do. You must become militant about your inner voice. You must speak what you want to become, not what you fear, not what you lack, not what you used to be. Say it now. I do not speak weakness. I install power. I do not rehearse defeat. I rehearse identity. I do not echo the world. I create my own language. Because your subconscious mind does not judge. It simply records. It listens to your most repeated, most emotionally charged language and accepts it as truth. So if you're casual with your words, you will be casual with your power. And if you joke about failure, speak lightly about your goals, or feed yourself the daily vocabulary of mediocrity, then do not be surprised when mediocrity becomes your reality. You must discipline your speech. Write affirmations that match the man you want to become, and speak them aloud every day with emotion. This is not superstition, it is science, it is strategy. It is how every giant I studied rewrote their story. You say you want to be fearless? Then stop saying you're afraid. You say you want to be disciplined? Then stop calling yourself lazy. You say you want to be unstoppable? Then your inner voice must say so before your results ever show it. This is where transformation begins. In the silence, in the morning, before the world gets noisy, before your doubts wake up. You must declare your new identity before the world tries to give you the old one. Let me be clear. This is a battle. The world will speak fear to you all day long. It will shout worry. It will whisper delay. And if you do not have a stronger voice already installed, you will obey the world. You will obey your doubt. And your life will become a reflection of noise, not vision. So I command you now, write your inner language. Repeat it daily. Speak it with fire. Feed your subconscious with discipline, courage, clarity, purpose. Because if you do this for 30 days, just 30, your outer world will begin to shift. not because magic, but because mental alignment. And once the mind aligns, the body follows, the decisions follow. The momentum begins. You become what you rehearse. So rehearse power, rehearse fire. Rehearse the voice of the man you are becoming until there is no room left for the voice of the man you used to be. Let us now continue into the next law, the one that ensures you never drift again, because your time has been claimed. Law 9, command your time. Own every hour. Let me give you the truth most men run from their entire lives. If you do not master your time, you do not master anything. Time is not simply what passes by. Time is the canvas on which your destiny is painted. Every hour you drift, every minute you waste is not just time lost. It's potential buried. Law 9 is simple yet ruthless. Command your time, or watch your future die in the hands of distraction. The men I studied, the giants who reshaped the world, Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Schwab, Lincoln, they were not just brilliant with ideas. They were militant with their hours. They scheduled, they structured, they claimed every minute of their day as sacred. Let me begin with Andrew Carnegie. He once said, "Do your duty and a little more, and the future will take care of itself." That little more, that came from how he structured his time. He did not float from task to task. He did not answer to every request. He understood that every hour spent on someone else's aim was an hour stolen from his own. Carnegie organized his life with clarity. Meetings were precise. Decisions were swift. His mornings were for strategic thought, his afternoons for execution, his evenings for reflection. And he demanded the same of the men around him. Why? Because success requires rhythm, discipline, intention. Now let us consider Henry Ford. Most know him for revolutionizing the automobile industry, but what made his success inevitable was his mastery over time. Ford didn't believe in long meetings or drawn-out plans. He once said, "Thinking is the hardest work there is," which is probably the reason so few engage in it. What did he mean? He meant that real thinking, focused, undistracted, scheduled thinking, is rare. Most men think passively. Ford carved time specifically to think deeply, to solve problems, and to act. His calendar was a weapon, not a formality. He knew that every wasted minute was profit lost, momentum delayed, legacy stolen. Now look at Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors the world has ever known. Do you think he stumbled into 1,093 patents by accident? Edison worked in carefully timed intervals. He would lock himself in his lab for days. Time was not measured by the clock, but by output. He didn't wait for inspiration. He created the environment that made inspiration inevitable. His laboratory wasn't chaotic. It was engineered for deep focus. His team knew when to work, when to report, when to think, and when to execute. It wasn't freedom that created genius. It was structure. Let me ask you plainly, have you structured your genius? Have you carved time daily, not just for work, but for purposeful progress? Now let us walk into the mind of Charles Schwab. When Carnegie appointed Schwab to lead U.S. Steel, Schwab didn't respond with celebration. He responded with a time audit. He asked himself, where does every hour go? He brought in a consultant named Ivy Lee, who taught him the now famous Rule of 6. Every night, Schwab wrote down the 6 most important things to do the next day and ranked them by importance. He worked on the first until it was complete, then moved to the second. No multitasking, no wasted energy, just focused execution. Schwab paid Lee $25,000 for that advice in the early 1900s. Why? Because the mastery of time is worth more than gold. Let me speak now of Abraham Lincoln, whose presidency was not during ease but chaos. The Civil War raged. Advisors argued. The nation was splitting. Yet Lincoln structured his time with reverence. He carved hours for solitude, for writing, for reading. He met with generals not on their schedule, but on his. He was never rushed, not because there wasn't pressure, but because his time had already been claimed by purpose. This is what you must learn. When your time is claimed by vision, the world respects it. When your time is claimed by emotion, the world owns you. Most men drift because they never decided what a successful day looks like. So they respond, they react, they're busy, but never built. You must design your day the way an architect designs a building. Every block must have a function, every hour a target, every moment a reason. Let me give you a daily structure to begin with. First hour, silence, autosuggestion, visualization. Declare your aim, rehearse your identity, install belief. Second hour, deep work, uninterrupted, no distractions, move the mission forward. Third hour, execution of a major task, no delay, no debate, just movement. Midday, reflection, movement. Feed the body, reset the mind. Afternoon, communication, meetings, strategy, planning. Evening, review, realignment, repetition of belief. Read something that expands your mind, and above all, track it. Every hour not tracked is an hour forgotten. Every hour forgotten is a seed that never grows. Say it with me. I am the commander of my time. My calendar is my shield. My schedule is my sword. No hour is random. No moment is wasted. I build every day like a brick in a legacy. Because this is what separates the average from the unstoppable. Not talent, not vision, but time ownership. A man who owns his time owns his life. You want to become the man you were born to be? Then look at your calendar. Your to-do list is not a list. It is a mirror. It shows what you value. It shows who you are becoming. The man who builds an empire has the same 24 hours as the man who drifts through life, but only one commands it. So begin tomorrow not with noise but with structure. Begin it not with emotions but with strategy. Decide now. I do not drift through days. I build each hour like stone. I command time, and because I command my destiny. This is how you become unstoppable. Let us now move into the final law, the one that does not suggest change but demands it, the law that kills hesitation, doubt, and delay in a single final decision. It is time now to kill the old identity and rise into power. Law 10. Kill the old identity and rise into power. There comes a time in every man's journey when improvement is no longer enough. He must not simply become better, he must become someone else entirely. This is that time, and this is that law. Law 10 is not for the man who wants incremental gains. It is for the man who is ready to kill the version of himself that keeps surviving. You see, the enemy of your future is not just fear or laziness or even ignorance. It is identity, the quiet, unseen agreement you made with mediocrity about who you are. That agreement must be burned right now, because if you do not destroy the old identity, you will always return to it. Just as water seeks its level, a man always seeks his self-image. You may change your habits, your goals, your schedule, but until you change your identity, you will remain tethered to the old life. I must tell you something hard, something most men will never hear. You are addicted to the man you used to be, and that addiction, if not broken, will be the reason you die with your music still in you. Let us speak clearly now. Let us look into the mirror and tell the truth. The old identity, the one who delays, hesitates, doubts, who cares too much what others think, who breaks his own word, who shrinks from fire, who tolerates mediocrity, that man must die. He cannot be managed. He cannot be negotiated with. He must be killed, because he will always pull you back to comfort. And comfort, my friend, is not your friend. Comfort is a prison with gold bars and no locks. The door is always open, but most never leave. Because the old self convinces you that staying still is safer than stepping into fire. But fire is where greatness lives. Let me remind you of the men who walked through fire. Abraham Lincoln, during the darkest winter of the Civil War, was told repeatedly to compromise, to ease the pressure, to wait until the timing was better. But Lincoln knew something that few understood. He had to kill the part of himself that still wanted to please everyone, the part of himself that feared criticism, that doubted his authority, that longed for peace more than truth. And he chose identity over approval. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation in the face of political death, and in doing so, he became someone else. He became Lincoln, not the man, but the legend. You see, legends are not born, they are built in fire. Andrew Carnegie began as a messenger boy, poor, unknown, unremarkable. But every day he acted as the man he was becoming, not the man he had been. He studied success. He wrote down his mission. He visualized power. He rehearsed the posture of leadership long before he had anyone to lead. And eventually, the old Carnegie, the poor boy, the doubter, the quiet one, died. And in his place rose the most powerful industrialist of his generation. Because he chose identity, he didn't wait to feel worthy. He decided to be worthy and let his actions prove it. Now let me speak of Henry Ford. Do you know how much doubt surrounded him? Do you know how many times people told him, "You can't mass produce cars. People will never accept them. Factories can't be systematized." Ford could have listened. He could have delayed. But instead, he made a final decision. I am the man who changes transportation forever. And every step he took as that man, not the old one. And soon the world bowed to the vision he had already accepted as truth. Do you understand now? Every time you act like the man you used to be, you teach your mind to stay there. But every time you speak, move, lead, train, think, and decide as the man you are becoming, you starve the old self until he has no breath left. This is how real transformation happens, not from a single motivational burst, but from identity repetition. Let me give you your ritual. Every morning, speak your new identity aloud, not as a wish, as a command. I am decisive. I am disciplined. I am the man who follows through. I act like the man who wins because I am that man now. I do not ask permission, I lead. Every time you hear the voice of the old self, the voice that says, be careful, slow down, you're not ready yet, you respond with the voice of the new identity. That man no longer speaks for me. That man is dead. I have already decided. Because the moment you repeat this enough, your subconscious accepts it as law. And when it becomes law, everything changes. Your posture, your tone, your results, your presence. Everything, because the world responds to how you see yourself. Not how you feel, not how talented you are, but what identity you practice. Let me give you a final truth. Doubt is not truth, it is habit. And like every habit, it can be broken through repetition, through belief, through violently rejecting the old version of yourself every time he rises. So now I ask you, are you willing to kill the old identity? Not gently, not someday. Now, are you willing to walk into the fire of your future? Even when you feel unqualified? Even when it hurts? even when it means becoming unrecognizable, because I promise you this, the man you are becoming is already inside you, but he cannot rise while the old self survives. So say it with me, and say it like you mean it. I am no longer the man who doubts. I do not hesitate. I do not delay. I do not explain. I walk in identity, not insecurity. I repeat power until weakness dies, and say it every day. Because this is your reprogramming, and this is your rebirth. You are no longer allowed to be the man who waits, the man who wonders, the man who hides. You are the man who decides, and the decision has already been made. Repeat this speech, repeat your belief, repeat your identity until the old self cannot survive, because the man who wins is already inside you. Let him rise. Let us end this where all true power begins, with the pen in your hand. You may think your story is already written, that the past has already decided who you are, that your mistakes have formed a ceiling, that your patterns are permanent. But I tell you now, you are not broken. You are unwritten. You are not the man shaped by his failures. You are the man now awakened by them. Every delay, every doubt, every misstep, every fear. It was not the end of your story. It was the setup, the tension before the breakthrough, the test before the identity. It brought you here. And now, this moment is the pen, and you are the author. No one else. Not your past, not your family, not your failures, not your friends, and only you. So I ask you, what story will you write now? Will you continue the old chapter where fear dictates your pace, doubt chooses your words, hesitation holds the pen? Or will you rewrite it? Will you flip the page, take the pen with authority, and declare, this is the chapter where I become untouchable. This is where I decide who I am, not once, but every day. Because that is what these 10 laws are. They are not suggestions. They are not ideas. They are the new rules of your identity. And your identity is not written in stone. It is written in repetition. And if you want to become unrecognizable, if you want to become the kind of man who builds, leads, moves, and never looks back, then you must repeat this speech. You must repeat these laws. You must repeat your belief until your subconscious knows no other way to live, because you are not your old thoughts. You are not your old story. You are not the man you were before these words entered your mind. You are what you repeat, and repetition is how the greats became great. Andrew Carnegie did not just dream of power, he rehearsed it every morning, every night. Henry Ford did not just believe he could, he repeated that belief until it became inevitable. Thomas Edison did not just try, he failed and repeated action until he forced success into reality. Abraham Lincoln did not rise by public approval. He chose identity every day until history bent to it. And now it is your turn. Let me give you your new rituals. Every morning you speak one law aloud, just one. Let it shape your tone. Let it dictate your focus. Let it become your compass for the day. Then at night, before you sleep, you play this speech again. You do not skip a day. You do not wait for motivation. You repeat until repetition becomes identity, because what you rehearse becomes your rhythm, and your rhythm becomes your reality. Write this down now. Speak it with me. I am not broken. I am unwritten. The past was preparation. I choose what happens next. I repeat my power. I reject my doubt. I am the author now, and I do not look back. You are not here to cope. You are not here to repeat history. You are here to rewrite it. You are here to train your subconscious until your old patterns collapse under the weight of your new identity. So do not let this speech be a moment. Let it be a manual. You return to it like a warrior returns to his weapon, daily, faithfully, relentlessly. And when you forget who you are, you play it again, because your identity is what you repeat. And the man who repeats power becomes power. Say it one final time. I am the rewrite. This is my chapter. This is my new law. And I repeat it until I become it. Now close the old book, pick up the pen, and write the next version of yourself with fire, with faith, and without apology. Let the world witness the rewrite. It begins now. You say you want wealth, but you've ignored the source. You speak of success, but do not open the book where power begins. You chase techniques, attend seminars, collect quotes, but you have overlooked the truth that built the minds of every great man I ever studied. You have walked past the one place where eternal law is recorded without error. You have looked everywhere for a secret that was always in front of you. A verse, one verse, short in words, vast in power, hidden not because it is lost, but because men no longer look where the truth still lives. It is not found in the philosophies of the drifting masses. It is not recited by the loud voices of modern noise. It is not adorned with entertainment or coated in convenience. It is written in the old book, the only book that holds the blueprint of dominion. And what I'm about to tell you, they do not want you to see. For the man who sees it becomes ungovernable by fear, unshaken by failure, untouched by lack. The man who sees it becomes mentally sovereign, spiritually directed, materially unstoppable. There is a verse in Scripture so powerful, so exact, so eternal, that if understood, truly understood, could rebuild your fortune, renew your mind, and free your soul from every lie of mediocrity that ever touched you. I will not give you that verse yet, because if I handed it to you as one more quote among many, you would do what most men do, nod, admire, and forget. But if you listen, if you follow me, if you stay through every word of this speech, you will not just read the verse, you will become it. When I walked with Carnegie, when I studied the minds of Edison, Ford, Rockefeller, Schwab, and Hill, I came to see that the most successful men were spiritual men, not in dress, not in ceremony, but in principle. Their minds were governed by invisible law. Their actions were born of a belief that they were not puppets of fate, but sons of law, masters of themselves. And behind every one of them, whether they could name it or not, was this verse. Whether they knew its chapter or its book, their lives echoed its reality. They obeyed it in practice, even if they never recited it aloud, and that's why they rose. I am not here to entertain you. I am not here to comfort you. I am here to reveal what the world hides. I am here to point your eyes back to the truth that formed the foundation of every great life, and to tell you that you are not exempt. If your life is in chaos, it is because you have violated law. If your finances are lacking, it is because your thoughts are disordered. If your heart is heavy, your spirit anxious, your days filled with fear, it is because you have wandered from the Word where order, peace, and dominion were written in stone. But the good news is this: the Word has not left you. The law has not changed. The door has not shut. What built empires can still build you. What shaped kings can still shape you. What guided the steps of wealth can still guide your next one, if you will listen. I spent a lifetime studying success. I watched men rise from poverty to power. I watched boys become builders of industries. I watched minds unlock riches because they obeyed spiritual law, even when they did not call it by name. And every time I traced it back, not to technique, not to trend, not to ambition, but to one truth, one eternal truth, buried in one verse. And if you want it, if you want to know what they don't want you to know, you must stay. Stay for every part. Study this as if your freedom depends on it, because it does. Stay until the very end, and you will be handed not just a line of scripture, but the operating system of wealth, peace, purpose, and power. Let me say this before we begin. This is not for the casual man. This is not for the drifter. This is not for the man who listens once and forgets. This is for the man who writes, who applies, who moves. This is for the builder, the seeker, the one who is done playing with shallow thought. You are standing at the edge of a new world, but that world will not be handed to you. It must be spoken into existence. It must be commanded through law, and the law must be understood in full. The verse is coming, the truth is near, but only for those who stay until the end. Before we continue, say these words aloud, not softly, not lazily, but as a declaration of alignment. Truth is eternal. I build on law. My success is rooted in spiritual order. Again, truth is eternal. I build on law. My success is rooted in spiritual order. Let these words cleanse your doubt. Let them sharpen your mind. Let them call your soul into alignment. For the truth you are about to hear is not suggestion. It is structure. It is law. And once you see it, you will never again ask for permission to prosper. Let us begin. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That is the verse they never wanted you to see. Not because it is hidden, but because if you ever believed it, truly believed it, you would become free. Free from fear, free from excuses, free from dependence on anything except the command center of your own thought. This verse is not merely poetic. It is not symbolic. It is the blueprint of man's dominion. It tells you plainly, you are not made by what happens to you. You are not shaped by the world. You are shaped by the thoughts you allow to dwell within you, especially those you repeat, especially those you feel, especially those you entertain in silence. You may appear to the world as a poor man, but if you think prosperity, you are rich already. You may hold no title, but if you think dominion, you carry the spirit of leadership. You may have fallen many times, but if you think victory, you are already rising. Everything you are right now, every dollar you hold, every opportunity you possess, every emotion that governs your day was first born in your thought. You are walking through a reality that your mind permitted, a world built by belief or broken by neglect. Every law of success I have ever taught begins here. Desire begins as thought. Faith begins as thought. Persistence begins as thought. Decision begins as thought. You cannot act until you first think. You cannot command until you first believe. You cannot build a life until you first build the idea of it in your own mind. The verse does not say, as a man feels. It does not say, as a man hopes. It does not even say, as a man tries. It says, thinketh. That is where the foundation lies. Not in emotion, not in chance, not in vague ambition, but in repeated intentional thought, held long enough to define the man himself. Every man of greatness I have studied obeyed this verse, whether he could name it or not. They built their identity first in thought and then made the world conform to it. Abraham Lincoln thought liberty. He read it in his youth. He imagined it during obscurity. He meditated on it through defeat. And when he finally spoke it, it changed a nation. Before he freed any man, he freed the thought of freedom in himself. Henry Ford thought motion. Before the Model T, before the assembly line, before the name meant anything, He thought of a world where every man could move freely. He was laughed at, opposed, and ridiculed. But because he kept the thought, the world eventually yielded. What you are is not your job, not your balance, not your past. What you are is what you think, habitually. A single thought held once will pass, but a thought held daily becomes a belief, and a belief held long enough becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you rise every morning thinking of your fortune? Or do you rehearse your failures? Do you think like a man who will be obeyed by money or chased by it? Do you think thoughts of order, wealth, clarity, decision? Or do you recycle fear, lack, shame, and confusion? Let me say it again. You are what you think. If you want to change your life, do not begin with your surroundings. Begin with your inner speech. The conversation you repeat inside your heart becomes the life you see with your eyes. Your subconscious mind, which obeys every command without question, cannot reject your dominant thoughts. It accepts what is repeated and emotionalized. And once it accepts it, it begins to work through unseen forces to make it real. This is not theory, this is law. A man may say, I want to be rich, but if he thinks constantly of bills, of failure, of risk, of loss, then he is not rich in heart. He has not planted wealth, he has planted fear, and the harvest will match the seed without fail. This verse, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, is the very seed of all creation. It is the Scripture's clearest explanation of manifestation. It tells you what you meditate on will become your reflection. Therefore, your first responsibility is not to hustle, not to shout, not even to move. It is to discipline your thought life. Before you can build a business, you must build the belief. Before you can lead others, you must think of yourself as a leader. Before you can attract riches, you must think like a man who expects them. If you think like the poor, you may inherit a fortune and lose it. If you think like the rich, you may begin in poverty and still rise. Because conditions are temporary, but thought is creative power. Your mind is a field. Every thought is a seed. You may not see the result instantly, but over time, the field will bear exactly what you have planted. If you want to know what you've been thinking, look at your life. If the crop is disappointing, change the seed. The first act of the rich man is not to make money. It is to think wealth, to hold it in the imagination, to speak of it as certain, to expect it as law. Until this is true, no effort will prosper. And so I ask you, what are you thinking and what are you becoming as a result? Say this now. Say it aloud, not quietly, not casually, but as a man who commands his future. I become what I think. I plant my future in the thoughts I choose today. Again, I become what I think. I plant my future in the thoughts I choose today. Let these words begin your reformation. Let them become your defense against idle thoughts. Let them cleanse your mind of the lies of weakness. Let them set a new pattern. From this day forward, you must watch your thoughts like a banker watches his vault. Let no thief enter. Let no seed of failure take root. Let no fear grow long enough to bear fruit. You are not bound to your circumstances. You are not doomed by your history. You are not shaped by external hands. You are shaped by your thoughts, and they belong to you alone. Now take up the power. Take up the truth. Take up the verse that rules all others. Hold it. Repeat it. Build upon it. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Let us continue. Thought alone is not enough. A thought unaccompanied by belief is a vapor. It rises and vanishes. But a thought saturated with faith, that is fire. That is creation. That is how invisible becomes visible. An idea becomes empire. You may think success. But if you do not believe the thought, if you do not wrap it in conviction, in certainty, in emotional heat, it will never take form. It will remain a ghost, haunting your imagination, but never building your life. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. But what is the heart? It is not the casual mind. It is not passing interest. It is the seat of belief, the emotionalized subconscious, where thoughts are no longer visitors, they are residents. Thought opens the gate. Faith gives the command. Faith is the force that tells the subconscious, this is not a wish, this is law, this is not someday, this is mine. And the subconscious, which always obeys belief, begins to shape the world to match the decree. Let me be clear. You do not receive what you think. You receive what you believe. Your results do not come from words alone. They come from the emotional vibration behind the words, the tone of certainty, the mental posture that does not ask, it commands. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That is not poetry. That is instruction. That is God's law of manifestation. If the thing is not yet visible, but you believe it with intensity, it begins to move toward you. Let me give you examples. Charles M. Schwab was not born into power, but he believed in his power before the world did. He saw himself at the helm of industry while still sweeping the floors. His tone, his walk, his speech carried the vibration of leadership, and the world, which bends to belief, responded. Carnegie entrusted him with leadership not because of age or resume, but because his belief in himself was contagious. He carried the weight of purpose before the position was ever assigned. That is how belief draws responsibility. That is how faith creates authority. Now consider Edison. He believed in electric light before the science caught up. He failed thousands of times, not because his ideas were weak, but because his faith never cracked. He held the result in his mind long enough for the conditions to surrender. Understand this. Faith held longer than fear becomes reality. If your faith wavers, your fortune wavers. If your belief shakes, your results scatter. But if you believe like Schwab, like Edison, like Ford, like Lincoln, your world must match what you carry inside. So how do you build that kind of belief? The same way a tree grows, daily nourishment, daily repetition, daily contact with truth. This is the power of auto-suggestion. You train your subconscious through repeated, emotionalized affirmations of your definite purpose. When you speak your aim aloud, morning and night, you are not just talking, you are giving instruction to the very mechanism that builds your life. And the more emotion you add, the deeper it takes root. This is not superstition. This is spiritual engineering. Thought is blueprint. Faith is construction. Autosuggestion is the labor crew that works while you sleep, bringing form to the structure you have declared. You must speak your faith before you see results. If you wait for evidence, you are not operating in faith. You are reacting to circumstance. The rich do not wait for proof. They create it through belief. Faith does not require external permission. It does not ask, is this realistic? It declares, this is mine, and I accept it now. And life, by law, begins arranging itself to obey. But beware, faith must not be occasional. It must be persistent. It must be cultivated like a fire that is never left to die. One missed day, one weak confession, one hesitant step. These are cracks where fear enters. Faith is built by ritual. Faith is secured by discipline. You must not leave it to chance. You must train it into your system until you walk in it, speak in it, breathe in it. Say this now. I believe the truth I speak. My faith gives power to my thoughts. Say it again. not as a chant, as a law, as a builder laying foundation stone. I believe the truth I speak. My faith gives power to my thoughts. Let these words become your spiritual constitution. Let them govern your language. Let them correct your inner dialogue when fear tries to rise. You are not required to know how it will happen. You are only required to believe it will. Faith handles the mechanics. You supply the certainty. This is how the world is changed. This is how fortunes are formed. This is how average men are raised into excellence, not by sight, but by faith. From this moment forward, monitor your tone. Speak with force. Do not say, I hope to succeed. Say, I will succeed because I already believe it. Do not say, I want wealth. Say, wealth is mine by spiritual law, and I receive it now. The subconscious accepts what is declared with emotion. It does not question. It does not filter. It simply obeys what is repeated with belief. And once it accepts, it goes to work. It moves people. It shifts circumstance. It draws resources. It opens doors. It creates events. You may not see how, but it will make the way plain. This is how the rich live before they are rich. This is how they act with certainty before success appears. This is how they draw power to themselves. They believe first, and reality follows. And you must do the same. Now rise. Pick up your written statement. Read it aloud today. Read it again tonight. Read it with emotion. Read it until your voice sounds like a man of faith, a man of command, a man of destiny. Repeat these final affirmations. I believe the truth I speak. My faith gives power to my thoughts. What I believe, I will see. My mind is a builder. My words are orders. My faith is the engine. Let us continue. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. These are not soft words. They are not symbolic. They are not meant for poetic pondering. They are law, unchanging, non-negotiable, eternal. And no man who violates this law shall prosper, just as no man who honors it can be denied. Every thought is a seed. Every sentence you speak, every emotion you repeat, every image you entertain in your mind is a seed dropped into the soil of your future. You may not see its fruit tomorrow, you may not see it next month, but you will see it. The universe does not forget what you plant. It does not misplace your thoughts. It does not skip over careless words. It returns your thoughts in kind. Fear planted grows fear. Doubt planted grows delay. Boldness planted grows opportunity. Repetition multiplies it. This law cannot be bribed. It cannot be tricked. It cannot be circumvented by shortcuts, excuses, or charm. You may climb high through deceit, but if you have planted pride, corruption, and fear, the fall is already scheduled. The law is blind to appearance, but loyal to substance. You may envy the man who rises fast, but observe long enough and the harvest of his inner world will come. If he planted truth, he will thrive. If he planted vanity, he will fall. Time reveals the roots of every man. The greatest fortunes ever created began with a consistent planting of thoughts, decisions, and disciplines. The greatest ruins always began with neglect, fear, and foolish seed. John D. Rockefeller did not build Standard Oil by accident. He did not win because he was lucky. He was not favored by chance. He was intentional in seed, relentless in order, and disciplined in thought. He planted value. He received value. He planted scale. He received empire. He planted stability. He received legacy. His life was a series of deliberate plantings. His mind was organized farmland, and his harvest matched the care of his cultivation. Most men sow without knowing. They toss seeds carelessly in every direction. A little envy here, a little fear there, a little laziness when no one is watching. Then they cry out when the weeds of poverty overtake their life. But the harvest only follows the hand. You are harvesting today what you planted yesterday. That is not meant to shame you. It is meant to awaken you. If you do not like the fruit, change the seed. If you do not like the environment, change the thought that built it. You must now begin to audit your seed. Every belief you hold, every sentence you repeat, every fear you entertain, every excuse you protect, every delay you justify, these are seeds. You must no longer say, I can't afford that. You must no longer say, that's not possible for someone like me. You must no longer say, that's just my luck. These are curses you speak over your own harvest. If you want wealth, you must plant it, not just in bank accounts, but in mind, word, and daily movement. You must think wealth when no one sees, speak it when no one agrees, build it when no one claps. Every morning is soil, every evening is reflection, every thought is a seed, every word is a decree, every action is a planting, and the man who understands this becomes the master of his own field. Let the lazy mock this law. Let the drifting man call it superstition, but they will reap a life of confusion and say it was fate. It was never fate. It was farming. Now ask yourself, what have I planted today? What am I watering with repetition? What am I feeding with imagination? What will grow from what I allow to live in my mind? Do not pretend ignorance. You know what you're sowing. If you've been careless, decide now. Pull the weeds, burn the field, and plant again with thought, faith, and fire. If you want a new life, you must plant a new harvest. And if you want that harvest to come in full, you must plant daily. Discipline is the hand that never forgets to sow. Say this aloud. I sow wealth daily. My harvest is guaranteed because I plant with intention. Again, I sow wealth daily. My harvest is guaranteed because I plant with intention. These are not affirmations. These are the voices of your next season. Speak them as a farmer speaks of rain, with reverence, with urgency, with unshakable expectation. There is no such thing as an idle day. There is no neutral ground. If you are not planting with purpose, weeds are growing by default. The field does not wait for your decision. It responds to what is active. If you skip your morning thought, the weeds speak for you. If you neglect your spoken aim, the fears whisper louder. If you walk through the day without attention, the harvest becomes accidental. And accidental harvests never bless the man. Plant only what you want multiplied. Think only what you want repeated. Speak only what you want returned. Act only in ways that water your destiny. This law governs empires and individuals. It is the reason some rise and others remain. It does not care where you begin. It only cares what you do with the field you've been given. You have been given today, this moment, this mind, this soil, and it is waiting for your command. Do not end this day without sowing something. Do not sleep tonight without naming the thought you wish to multiply. Do not walk through life casting shadows when you could be casting seed. The law is watching. The ground is listening. And the man who plants with purpose owns the future. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That single verse contains the origin of all identity. Not as he wants to be, not as he hopes to be, not as others say he should be, But as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. The heart is not the organ that pumps blood. It is the inner self. It is belief. It is identity. It is the subconscious reality you carry beneath your words, beneath your posture, beneath your memory. It is the man you are when no one watches. No man receives wealth before he becomes the kind of man who can hold it. The riches never arrive before the identity. Even if they do, they vanish, because the man still holding the identity of lack will sabotage what doesn't match his inner frame. This is why lottery winners lose their fortunes. This is why sudden success destroys the unprepared, because you cannot keep what your identity cannot carry. Riches are not attracted to desperation. They are attracted to congruence. They come to the man whose thoughts, words, rituals, posture, and attitude match the life he says he desires. If you think in your heart as a beggar, no amount of outer striving will change your destiny. If you see yourself in secret as a failure, the world will eventually confirm it. You are never betrayed by life. You are only matched. So I say to you, you must become before you receive. You must walk in the identity of the man you are becoming before he ever appears in your bank account, your mirror, your network, or your reputation. This is not pretense. This is alignment. This is how the laws of the universe detect seriousness. You think as the man, so you become the man. And once you become the man, you receive what belongs to him. The identity must precede the evidence. It is not the money that makes the man, it is the man that makes the money. The world sees the harvest, but heaven sees the seed. And the seed is always planted in your inner concept of self. I ask you, what do you really think about yourself when no one's around? Do you feel equal to the fortune you claim to desire? Or do you still walk with hidden inferiority? Do you repeat statements of power in public only to whisper doubt to yourself in private? Do you speak of success and still carry the language of failure in your inner conversation? The truth is, you cannot rise above your self-image. You may temporarily fight your way forward. But if your identity is still that of the man who fails, who doubts, who apologizes for his greatness, you will find a way to return to the version of life that matches the man you believe yourself to be. This is why you must build identity like a fortress. It is the foundation beneath all wealth, all purpose, all confidence. No man has built empires on self-contempt. No man has led others while seeing himself as unworthy. No man has risen with a broken picture of his own worth. I remember the story of Edwin C. Barnes, the man who entered the mind of Edison long before he entered his business. He was not a man of credentials. He was not a man of fortune. But he saw himself as equal to the opportunity he desired. He believed, not in vague theory, but in certainty, that he would become Edison's partner. He did not hope. He did not beg. He did not drift into a job. He declared the partnership in his heart and walked forward with that decision written on his spirit. He worked menial tasks, but in his heart he was a builder. He swept floors, but in his identity he stood at the helm of enterprise. And eventually, reality caught up with his belief. The question is never, when will success come to me? The question is, when will I become the man who no longer needs to ask? That is the moment heaven responds. That is the day things shift. That is when the laws recognize you as an equal to the outcome you seek. So how do you build identity? You do it with ritual, with language, with discipline, and with repetition. You write your definite chief aim not just to inspire yourself, but to form yourself. You are not reading a future. You are writing a character. You must speak wealth aloud, not because it is already seen, but because your subconscious needs to hear it until it no longer questions it. You must speak confidence. You must speak mastery. You must speak vision. And you must speak it more often than you speak doubt. The mind is a mirror that reflects what it is most often shown. If you feed it thoughts of failure, weakness, lack, and worry, it will show you a man who lives that way. But if you show it power, purpose, belief, and forward movement, it will begin to accept this as the new image, and once it accepts it, it becomes automatic. You must also remove contradiction. You cannot say one thing and believe another. You cannot act one way in the morning and reverse course at night. The subconscious does not trust instability. It rewards clarity. It rewards congruence. You must be a man of one signal. Do not speak poverty and expect wealth. Do not carry guilt and expect favor. Do not walk in fear and expect the world to respond with opportunity. You must decide, and your decision must show up in your thought, speech, posture, and habits. This is your greatest responsibility, to craft the identity of the man who is already what he once hoped to become. To treat yourself according to your future, not your past. To act like the architect of your fortune, not the recipient of others' permission. Say this now. I walk in the identity of success. My thoughts match the man I am becoming. Again, I walk in the identity of success. My thoughts match the man I am becoming. These are not wishes. They are blueprints. Each word you speak is a stone. Each belief you accept is a beam. You are building a house, and you will live in whatever structure you construct inside your mind. Every great man I studied had this trait. They did not waver between two selves. They did not drift between humility and greatness. They decided who they were, and they refused to act like anything less. You must do the same. Walk like the man, speak like the man, think like the man, spend like the man, work like the man, pray like the man, move like the man, until the world no longer sees your effort, but sees only your identity. You must become so rooted in who you are becoming that the present cannot convince you otherwise. And once the world believes what you have long believed in secret, the riches will appear, not as reward, but as reflection. Imagination is God's gift to the builder. It is the bridge between the spiritual and the material, the unseen and the seen, the invisible idea and the tangible reality. As it is written, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. But what is the heart? The heart is imagination on fire with belief. It is not the passing thought. It is the picture held within, repeated, nourished, and lived in long before the world sees it. The heart does not operate by logic. It operates by vision. And vision is built through imagination. When a man says, I see it, he does not mean with the eye, he means with the soul. The world was not made by hands. It was made by imagination. The hands only followed the vision. The bricks only followed the blueprint. The business, the wealth, the reputation, all were drawn first in the mind of the man bold enough to hold the image until it became real. Faith without imagination is blind. It is empty repetition. It is lifeless creed. But when faith enters the imagination, it becomes creative force. It breathes life into possibility. It transforms aimless hope into structured expectation. Imagination is the womb of creation. Faith is the breath within it. Every empire I have studied, every fortune I have dissected, every name etched into history began first in imagination. It was a picture seen only by one man, a picture so real to him, so vivid, so emotionally charged that he walked in it before he touched it. He rehearsed it before it arrived. He saw it while others doubted, and because he refused to release the image, life obeyed it. Poor men also use imagination, but they use it against themselves. They picture the bills arriving. They see the employer saying no. They imagine the business failing. They walk through the scenario where they are rejected, laughed at, betrayed, and their imagination, being neutral, responds. It gives them what they see. You cannot escape your imagination. You can only direct it. You are either building with it or being buried by it. Most men imagine unconsciously. They do not choose their images, they react to their fears. And so they live out what they did not want because they never replaced what they were afraid of with what they commanded. A man who desires wealth but spends his day imagining struggle is not in conflict. He is in agreement with poverty. His mouth may say, "I believe in abundance," but his imagination is rehearsing lack. And the subconscious mind, which obeys image over intellect, responds to the picture, not the speech. This is why Scripture speaks so often of vision. Without vision, the people perish. Without image, the spirit dies. Without mental picture, the body wanders. But where there is vision, there is energy, focus, direction. There is power. There is dominion. There is magnetic force that pulls the thing imagined into the life of the one who dares to hold it long enough. Let me give you a name, Andrew Carnegie. Before he ever held steel, before he ever laid track, before his name meant anything beyond a clerk's desk, he imagined a nation built on metal. He saw bridges, he saw rails, he saw cities. He imagined them so vividly that he felt responsible to bring them forth. He walked with the image of construction. He spoke as a man who would one day direct the building of an empire. His eyes were fixed, not on current wages, but on future structure. And that structure, first drawn in the mind, became one of the greatest enterprises the world has ever known. The rail did not come before the image. The wealth did not come before the vision. The factories did not appear before the blueprint. He imagined it daily with faith, and the image began to take form. This is how you must now live. You must see it before the world shows it. You must walk in the scene you desire before the bricks are laid. You must learn to hold the picture until the world submits. Let me now give you 3 imagination exercises. These are not games. These are the disciplines of builders. 1. See the result. Each morning and night, close your eyes and imagine your goal as already completed. Not in the future, but now. Walk into the room, feel the fabric, hear the voices, look at the balance, see the contract signed, experience the result in full color and emotion. 2. Walk through the outcome. Mentally rehearse your actions, the call you will make, the speech you will give, the meeting you will lead, the decision you will deliver. Walk through it in detail. This is how champions win before the arena appears. 3. Rehearse victory. Replay wins you have already experienced. See the moment you succeeded, the time you overcame, the deal you closed, the test you passed. Imagination does not only build the future, it cements the confidence of the past. Each of these must be repeated until they become second nature. Until your mind, when left alone, defaults to the image you have trained into it. Your goal is not to feel motivated. Your goal is to imagine until the picture becomes home. Say this now. I imagine only what I command. My mind is the instrument of creation. Again, I imagine only what I command. My mind is the instrument of creation. Let these affirmations govern your attention. Let them guide what you allow into your sight, your ears, your conversation. Every distraction is an enemy of the image. Every fear is a challenger to the vision. You must protect your imagination like a treasure chest. And when the world laughs at your pictures, do not shrink. When they ask, "Where is your evidence?" point to your mind and say, "Here is my foundation. Here is my structure. Here is my evidence." And the world will see it soon. You are not building with tools. You are building with thought, with faith, with imagination. You are collaborating with God when you imagine with clarity. You are obeying the highest laws when you live from vision instead of memory. The men who made history did not do so by reacting. They created. And all creation began in imagination. Now lift your eyes, picture what you desire, and hold it. Speak it, walk through it, return to it day and night, until it becomes the most natural place your mind knows. You were made in the image of a creator. That means you were made to create. Let us continue. Fear is the only enemy of divine law. It is the only voice that can interrupt the power of right thinking, the only force that can poison the harvest of truth. As you think, so are you. But when fear enters your thought, you become what fear imagines, not what faith has promised. Fear is not a condition. It is a choice to believe in something outside of spiritual order. The Word says clearly, God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. If fear was not given by God, then it was planted by the world. It was not born of truth. It was learned through repetition. It was passed down like poverty. It was trained into men by other men who had forgotten who they were. Fear is not your nature. Fear is not your inheritance. Fear is the only thing separating you from the life already promised to you by law. It does not need to be reasoned with. It needs to be removed, cut off, cast out, rejected like the lie that it is. Fear is anti-law. Fear is anti-truth. Fear is anti-creation. It says, what if it doesn't work? While truth says it already is. It says, be careful, when law says be faithful. It says, wait and see, while law says decide and act. Every man who remains small, who remains poor, who remains stuck in cycles, does so not because of lack, but because of fear. And fear always comes in disguise. It wears the mask of wisdom. It poses as caution. It imitates planning. But it is always delay in disguise. You can trace every failure back to a moment when fear spoke louder than purpose, when the man who once believed hesitated, when the man who once moved with fire stopped to ask permission from someone who had never walked where he was going. Most men do not serve truth. They serve fear with more faith, more repetition, more obedience than they give to their goals. They speak the language of fear fluently. What if I fail? What if I lose it? What if they judge me? What if I'm not ready? These are fear's commandments, and most men obey without question. Let me tell you, you can either serve fear or serve your calling, but not both. The mind cannot hold two masters. If you give your thought to fear, your energy will follow. And once energy leaves purpose, your results collapse. You cannot rise while bowing to the voice of loss. Fear pollutes thought. It corrupts desire. It causes the mind to drift. It blocks the subconscious from receiving the command of your goal. It breaks the bridge between faith and creation. It turns bold men into silent watchers. And worst of all, fear delays harvest. The seed may be good, the goal may be written, the plan may be strong, but when fear enters, you stop watering, you stop moving, and the season passes, the opportunity closes. The window that was once open begins to seal. Understand this, fear is not passive. It is an active force. It is not neutral. It is poison. It is spiritual disobedience. Every time you allow fear to dwell in your thought, you break alignment with divine law. And the law does not honor divided minds. So what must you do? You must replace fear, not with more analysis, but with decision. Fear dies when decision enters, because fear thrives on hesitation. But decision silences the noise. It declares, "This is the way, I walk in it." You must replace fear with movement. Even a small action taken in purpose weakens fear's hold. Fear says, "Don't take the call." Movement says, "Call now." Fear says, "Wait another day." Movement says, "Start now." You must replace fear with definite purpose. The man who is locked onto his definite chief aim cannot be shaken by passing voices. His eye is on the mountaintop. His feet move even when the fog covers the path. He is not fearless. He is faithful to something bigger than fear. I must tell you, fear does not disappear because you want it to. It disappears because you outgrow it, because you stop feeding it, because you begin feeding your faith more than you feed your past, because you stop rehearsing weakness and start declaring victory. Say this aloud: I reject fear. I walk in law. My thoughts carry no permission for doubt. Again, I reject fear. I walk in law. My thoughts carry no permission for doubt. These are not suggestions. These are eviction orders. You are no longer entertaining fear. You are commanding your thought into order. You are speaking to your soul with authority. You are reminding the law who is in charge. Do not delay. Do not debate fear. Speak against it. Move through it. Decide without asking. Write your goal again. Read it aloud. Take the step you've been delaying. That is how fear dies. Not in contemplation, but in conquest. You must now become the man who is too focused to fear, too purposeful to hesitate, too rooted in truth to drift. You must become the man who hears fear but obeys law. Because when you walk in spiritual law, fear cannot follow you. The moment you act in obedience to your higher calling, the chains begin to break. The confusion begins to clear. And the voice of fear gets quieter every day. You were not given fear by God, therefore you do not owe it your loyalty. You were given power. You were given love. You were given a sound mind. Use them. Stand up and move forward. Repetition is the hand that sculpts the soul. It is the chisel that shapes identity, the rhythm that forms belief, the fire that burns away hesitation. One thought is not enough. One decision, one affirmation, one inspired moment, that is not transformation. To think is not enough. You must rethink. You must rehearse. You must repeat until the thought is no longer an idea, but your reality. The subconscious mind, which governs your habits, your responses, your energy, your speech, your posture, your outcomes, does not change by accident. It changes only through sustained instruction. And the language it obeys is repetition, not logic, not emotion, not inspiration, repetition. This is why you can know the truth and still live in bondage. You can read every principle, quote every law, speak every verse, and still see no fruit. Because until the subconscious has been impressed, until the repetition has taken root, you are only a man carrying theory. You are not yet carrying power. Let me say it clearly. The man who repeats wins. The man who repeats with emotion, with belief, with structure, he becomes the man others admire, others follow, others study. Because repetition is not weakness. It is mastery. Even Scripture is repeated truth. It is not 1,000 ideas. It is one law spoken again and again. Obey truth, walk in power, speak no fear, act in faith. The great book does not change its law. It repeats it until the man who reads it becomes the verse he once studied. Likewise, success is not many things. It is one thing practiced many times, one purpose spoken every day, one aim written, read and lived until it becomes identity, until the mind can no longer reject it, until the heart no longer doubts it. In my own life, I learned this law the hard way. I knew the principles, I had the philosophy, but my external world resisted. My circumstances mocked me, and I realized it was not because I lacked truth. It was because I had not yet repeated it enough to become it. I began to write my definite chief aim every morning, every night. I began to speak it aloud with emotion, not casually. I began to imagine the result daily, not once a week, but daily. And over time, slowly at first, then suddenly, the results began to obey me. Doors opened, ideas appeared, people responded, because the man I had written down was now the man who lived in my subconscious, and the world cannot deny the man who is in full agreement with himself. Now I teach you the same. You must structure your day around spiritual repetition, not once, not when you feel like it, daily, repeatedly, without excuse, without delay. In the morning, read your purpose. Before you check the world, check your aim. Before you listen to voices, listen to your command. Speak your goal aloud, not like a student, but like a king declaring law. Feel it, see it, command it, and at midday, return to it. Speak your affirmations with intensity. Say them with power. Say them until your mind matches your voice. If you are drifting, this will anchor you. If you are doubting, this will correct you. Midday repetition realigns the wheel. At night, speak truth before sleep. The subconscious does not sleep. It works through the night. If you feed it fear, it multiplies doubt. If you feed it desire wrapped in belief, it begins building while you rest. Night is your sacred moment. End it with command. You must not go to sleep repeating the problems of the day. You must not entertain defeat as your last meditation. You must end every day as a builder, not a beggar. Repeat law, repeat purpose, repeat truth. This is how empires are formed. Not in fireworks, in repetition. The man who lifts the same weight daily grows stronger. The man who speaks the same aim daily grows bolder. The man who repeats his purpose until it becomes unconscious, that man becomes unstoppable. Say this now. My mind obeys what I repeat. I master success by repeating law. Say it again. My mind obeys what I repeat. I master success by repeating law. These are not pretty sayings. They are programming. Every repetition you perform rewrites the software of your being. Your thoughts are code. Your affirmations are updates. Your beliefs are installations. And your identity is the operating system that emerges. The lazy man mocks repetition. The drifting man avoids structure. The wise man embraces it. Because he knows power is found in pattern. Law is found in rhythm. Identity is forged in the furnace of daily alignment. Let me now give you your schedule. Obey it, and your life will reflect the truth you claim to believe. Upon waking, sit up, breathe deeply, speak your definite chief. Aim with full emotion. Read it, imagine it, speak it again. Midday, take 5 minutes. Close your eyes, speak your affirmations, reconnect with the vision, see it again, say it again. Before sleep, reflect, speak your aim aloud, give thanks as if it's already done. Affirm your belief, sleep in expectation. This structure is not a ritual of religion. It is a spiritual engineering process. You are shaping the unseen, and the unseen will always become the seen. If you follow this pattern, your energy will shift. Your confidence will rise, your focus will sharpen, and your results will begin to reflect the law you are finally obeying. You are not a product of randomness. You are a product of repeated thought. Change the repetition, and the outcome must change. That is law. Repeat this now. My words shape my mind. My mind commands my world. My results reflect my repetition. You are no longer speaking by accident. You are no longer thinking without structure. You are now a man of rhythm, a man of daily fire, a man of law. In the beginning was the Word. Before the earth was formed, before the stars were hung, before matter had shape or name, there was the Word, spoken or unspoken, written or declared, whispered in faith or shouted in fear. The Word is always first. All creation begins in Word. All reality begins in Word. All change, all direction, all movement begins with Word. You are no different. You are not shaped by accident or fate. You are shaped by the word you obey. You are the echo of your most repeated belief. You are the result of the speech you tolerate, the thoughts you agree with, the declarations you allow. You become not what you want, not what you admire, not even what you touch. You become what you obey. Most men do not fail from lack of ability. They fail from obedience to the wrong word. They obey fear. They obey doubt. They obey limitation. They hear the whisper, "You're not ready," and they stop. They hear, "This is too much for you," and they bow. They hear, "Who are you to expect more?" And they serve that voice as if it were their master. And so they become what that voice said, not because it was true, but because they believed it, because they gave it power, because they obeyed. Every day, every hour, the average man lives in response to voices. And the voice that wins is the one he follows most consistently. What are the voices you obey? Are they voices of law or voices of emotion? Are they voices of divine command or cultural confusion? Are they voices of truth or voices of doubt? There is no neutral thought. Every word you submit to either builds your foundation or weakens your structure. Every inner conversation is a construction site. You are either laying brick or cracking the wall. And every result you see is the blueprint you obeyed in word. Let me say it plainly. You become the word you obey. If you obey truth, you rise. If you obey law, you stabilize. If you obey vision, you expand. But if you obey fear, you shrink. If you obey doubt, you drift. If you obey the past, you repeat it. The power was never outside of you. It was always in the word you believed. And let us not forget, your own word is the loudest voice in your life. What you say to yourself matters more than what others say. And what you say aloud trains your inner mind. Every sentence is either a rope lifting you higher or a chain pulling you back. This is why I have instructed you in repetition, in daily declaration, in speaking your definite chief, aim aloud, because the word repeated becomes law. And the subconscious, which governs all habit and action, obeys without resistance. It accepts your voice as the final authority. But many men use their own voice to curse themselves. They say, "I'll never figure this out." They say, "I'm tired of trying." They say, "I guess that's just how it is." And those words become walls, invisible at first, but firm enough to trap a destiny. I challenge you now. Speak only what you desire. Obey only thoughts that build. Refuse to repeat weakness. Refuse to agree with smallness. Refuse to submit to any language not aligned with truth. When you hear fear, replace it. When you hear lack, override it. When the old voices return, say aloud, "That is not my word. That is not my truth. That is not my law." Your mind must be ruled. Your heart must be governed, and your word must be royal. For the man who speaks like a king becomes one. The man who thinks like a builder builds. The man who walks in agreement with divine truth becomes the living reflection of law itself. Return now to the verse that began all things. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That is not a metaphor. That is an equation. What you think in your core, what you hold, repeat, and obey, is what you will see in your life. Your job is not to chase results. Your job is to command the thought. Your job is to discipline the word. Your job is to submit to truth until truth rewrites your identity. And when identity changes, reality follows. You cannot speak the language of fear and expect a future of strength. You cannot declare failure and expect the law to respond with abundance. You cannot serve two voices. You must decide which one owns your future. Say this now. Say it with the weight of a man who knows his next words shape his next chapter. I obey truth. I become what I command. As I think in my heart, so am I. Again, I obey truth. I become what I command. As I think in my heart, so am I. Let these become your code. Let them silence the noise. Let them override the old programming. Let them cut through every excuse, every hesitation, every illusion. This is your word. This is your mirror. This is your law. Now speak only what aligns. Think only what builds. Walk only in the direction of the voice that made you, the voice that told you, be fruitful, the voice that said, subdue the earth, the voice that spoke before time and said, it is good. That voice is still speaking, but you must choose to obey it. And once you do, once you shut out the noise, shut out the fear, shut out the false masters, you will become what was written about you before the world ever saw you. From this moment forward, you speak with intention. You think in agreement with law. You act as one who no longer takes orders from fear. You are not casual with your mind. You are not loose with your language. You are a man under command, and the command is truth. Let us now move to conclusion. For the man you are becoming is waiting, and he only responds to the voice you obey. You have now seen what few ever understand, how one verse contains the secret to every fortune ever built, every life ever elevated, every man who rose from nothing and turned the invisible into the inevitable. It was never many truths. It was always one law, one pattern, one eternal structure. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Not might be, not hopes to be. His identity is not formed by accident. It is not gifted by family or shaped by society. It is chosen through thought, reinforced through repetition, and sealed through belief. This is the law behind every miracle, every success, every transformation, and it belongs to you. You are not a servant to money. You are not a beggar of opportunity. You are not a subject to the economy, to the world, to the voices of fear. You are a servant to thought. And thought, when properly commanded, commands all things, including money. The money does not lead, it follows. The opportunity does not invent itself. It appears in response to the man who has built himself according to divine thought. The world outside is nothing more than a mirror reflecting the dominant pattern inside. This truth is not a lesson to admire. It is not a quote to memorize. It is not a speech to applaud. It is a law to live, a blueprint to obey. And like all law, It does not bless those who study it casually. It only blesses those who surrender to its structure. There are many who will hear these words and nod. They will agree. They will quote the verse. They will feel stirred and then return to the language of doubt, the habits of drift, the inner dialogue of fear. And they will receive nothing, because this truth, like all truth, is activated only through action. You must not walk away with admiration. You must walk away with assignment. You must not leave here feeling inspired. You must leave here with instruction. From this moment forward, let there be no confusion in your mind about where success comes from, where wealth begins, where confidence is forged. It does not begin in banks. It does not begin in contacts. It begins in your thought, and not in casual thought, but in the heart thought, the inner belief that speaks without your permission, that acts without your awareness, that directs your life while you sleep. You must now train the heart, not just once, not just when it feels good, but daily, with discipline, with fire, with structure. You will begin with the verse, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." This is your foundation. It is not a verse. It is a key, a lens, a sword, a mirror. You will read it daily until your soul begins to repeat it in silence, until it becomes your posture, your logic, your defense. You will speak only what you desire, not what you fear, not what the news says, not what the doubters shout, but what you command, what you choose, what you build. You will never again say, "I can't." You will never again say, "That's not me." You will never again say, "I hope it happens," because these are the words of slaves, and you were never born to obey fear. You were born to obey law. You will build your identity around truth, not the truth of your past, but the truth of your purpose, the truth of your divine origin, the truth of what God has already placed within you. You will not wait for others to confirm it. You will walk in it until the world must submit. You will move without fear, not because fear disappears, but because you no longer take orders from it. You will act while afraid. You will speak while trembling. You will take the step even when the fog has not cleared, because obedience is not based on comfort. It is based on principle. You will plant with intention. You will not sow random thought. You will not scatter your attention. You will not fill your mind with the weeds of contradiction. You will plant what you want multiplied and nothing else. Every word you speak will be a seed. Every action you take will be a watering. Every repetition will be sunlight. And every belief will be the atmosphere in which your future grows. This is how men rise. This is how fortunes are built. This is how poverty is reversed. This is how failure becomes fire. This is how small men become giants, not through inheritance, not through chance, not through luck, but through obedience to a single law. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Now I ask you, who are you becoming? Not who do you want to be, not who do you hope to be. Who are you training yourself to be? Through the thought you allow, the belief you accept, the voice you repeat? Are you becoming the man who commands wealth or the one who chases it? Are you becoming the man who lives by law or the one who waits for permission? Are you becoming the man who speaks power or the one who recites the script of the world? You cannot serve two visions. You must now choose. From this day forward, every time you speak, you are casting votes for the man you will be. Every time you act, you are declaring who you believe yourself to be. Every hour is a courtroom, and your thoughts are the testimony. Speak only what you would be proud to become. Act only in the direction of the life you claim to want. Think only what you are willing to receive. Say this now, not quietly, not with hesitation, but as a man who means every word. I build by law, I rise by truth. As I think, so I am. As I believe, so it is. Again, I build by law, I rise by truth. As I think, so I am. As I believe, so it is. Let these words become your covenant. Let them mark the death of smallness. Let them declare the end of fear. Let them be your voice when doubt comes knocking. Let them be the rod that strikes down every inferior thought that ever told you to play small. You are now the guardian of your gate, the builder of your temple, the voice in your storm, the architect of your wealth. You are no longer begging for change. You are commanding it. Do not wait. Do not drift. Do not wonder what's next. You already know. The verse has spoken. The law has been given, and the voice of power is waiting for your agreement. You are now a man of thought, a man of heart, a man of divine identity. And as you think in your heart, so are you. Now begin.